Hi everyone, I'm Andrew Baxter. I'm a digital marketing executive at Pollen Technology. Welcome to today's webinar, 70% of digital projects fail, discover the AI-driven solution. I'd first like to introduce you to today's panel. First, we have John Maguire, MD and founder of Recommend. John has over 35 years experience within digital projects and has delivered hundreds of successful solutions. For a keen interest in software development in AI, he is particularly passionate about improving how digital solutions are developed. Next, we have Kieran Macaulay, business development executive with over 3 years of experience in building new and ongoing relationships with clients from a telecoms and procurement background. Today's agenda, we're going to start with a discussion of the problem with requirements gathering and then go on to a demonstration of our product, Recommend. There's an opportunity for a Q&A at the end, so feel free to pop questions in the question box throughout the presentation. I'll now pass you on to Kieran.
Thanks for that, Andrew. And I think we'll just begin before we go into the brief demonstration with John, just to ask you a few questions about the product, John. So what were the main reasons behind developing Recommend in the first place?
So we run a company, a software development company, Pollen Technology, and within that company we offer kind of software development, fixed price software development. So it's very important we get requirements right, and we found that we actually were not getting requirements right as often as we'd like to. So we kind of looked at our own internal digital transformation of the requirements process, and we searched outside for solutions to this, and we found out that, you know, in part of the research, we're finding out that 70% of digital projects fail. We also found out that 70% of the failures are due to requirements, and that certainly rung true with what we knew about requirements. We also found that some of the tools that were available just didn't really, they were kind of like glorified post-it notes. You're either using Microsoft Word to write up requirements, or you're using almost like writing tickets to say, as a user, I want to, you know, I want to be able to create an invoice. As a user, I want to be able to edit an invoice, those kind of things. So we ended up developing our own solution, effectively just trying to get a more structured way of doing requirements, and we spun that out into a product and another startup company to do that.
And just to touch on that further, then, so if requirements gathering was the main issue, what were the primary reasons for failure within the requirements gathering process?
Well, the requirements generally quite kind of manual process, a conversation between ourselves and stakeholders, and that's typical of a lot of companies where the stakeholders are either internal or external, but you're basically trying to work out what does the business, the organisation want to develop, and communicate that to developers, and then document that to you know, document it in a way that everybody can understand. So for us, we were finding that was very variable between different people doing requirements. Somebody's really good at requirements, somebody was not so good, nobody was perfect at requirements. So we were finding that requirements were getting mixed, requirements were not being detailed enough. Sometimes we were replying to tenders where the requirements were incredibly vague, and you would try to estimate off the back of those, but the estimation is really difficult because you don't have any detail. So it's generally lack of detail, and missing requirements is a big thing.
And so addressing these issues then, what does this do overall for the requirements gathering process?
Well, I think the thing is, if you get the requirements wrong up front, then there's this thing called code of uncertainty, which is basically, as requirements get better, you get better and better estimates. But if you have very vague requirements at the start of a project, you get very poor estimates. So the problem really is that this affects project budgeting, it affects project estimation. So what you find is that 30% of projects go over budget or over time within the industry on average. If you do the research, Google online, those tends to be those are the figures. What then happens is that those projects running over, you have to ask, are they running over, or have the estimates been poor in the first place? You know, somebody has to begin the process budget for it. So what we find is that people, because requirements were poor, estimates were poor, budgets were poor, and therefore the projects were not being delivered to the budget and the price that we thought. And it's particularly painful for us as a company, because if we're offering fixed price software, then we have to make sure the requirements and the estimates are spot on, really.
And so who could recommend help there in terms of organisations, sectors, fields?
So I think anybody performing digital transformation, developing their own solutions to kind of automate business processes, to develop things like SaaS products, etc. So it could be startups, it could be commercial organisations who have their own internal IT departments. It could also be public sector, because if you look at public sector, if you look at tenders from public sector has a very visible set of overruns that are generally documented in newspapers about how much they've overspent on projects. And if you actually look at some of the tenders that you see, the tenders in public sector are very, very vague in a lot of cases. So I think certainly public sector and ourselves as taxpayers, we could probably benefit from more detailed requirements at the initiation stage of a project, so that the budget and estimation was more accurate.
Yeah, and so just before we move on to a brief demonstration of the product then and some of the key features, what would be the main takeaways that we can achieve for those types of organisations?
So hopefully you can see in the demo that we're basically, we're kind of trying to digitally transform how requirements are captured. We're trying to do it in a very structured manner. So we also can produce a lot of things automatically, because we produce requirements in a structured manner. So effectively what we're trying to do is reduce the amount of time it takes for requirements, but we're also trying to get to a standard within requirements, a level standard of competency that people can get to by just using a tool. We would never say with any tool that it's as good as a human, actually a very good human doing it, but what we feel is that the tool can possibly drag up the standard for an organisation in general. What it can also do is really quickly get to requirements. But the biggest benefit for us is it can hopefully increase the accuracy of requirements, and if it can increase the accuracy, then it can increase the likelihood of project being successful and reduce overruns. And certainly that's, the tool was developed internal for ourselves as a software house who've done hundreds of software projects. So for us, we have used it to basically drive down project overruns from there, and really just to get projects delivered in a more timely manner and to budget.
Perfect. Yeah, so I think if you could take us through a demonstration, that would be great.
Okay, so let me move into presented mode here and hopefully show my screen. Can you see that there?
Yeah, we can see that.
Do we have the recommend screen?
Yep, can see
okay.
It.
So this is recommend. So I've already logged in. It's a multi-user system. It's a cloud system. So you have projects. I've already got a couple created here. I'll show you one of them after I create a new project as well. So what I'll do is I'm going to create a new project. So this is a new system that we're going to develop. So what I'll do is a simple, very simple example is I'm going to say it's a letting agent system. So it's a system for a letting agent, and the description I've just cut and paste in is it's going to be an application to allow users to browse houses and arrange viewing appointments for a letting agency. So if I hit next here, then what you'll see is the system goes off and it uses AI to try and identify the entities within the project description. Obviously, that description for a real project would be more detailed. So we through the text of that description, I've identified some entities. So it's identified application, houses, users, viewing appointments. The application is the thing we're developing, so it's not really a part of the project as such. So but houses are, users are, and viewing appointments are. So what I can then do is I then can create basically a set of structured requirements for the project. So it's basically a document which has various parts that we can then fill in. So what I'm going to do first of all is look at this system overview. Obviously, in a real system, we would have, if you look at description here, this is carried through from the description. Obviously, we'd have more detail there generally, but I'm just going to leave that as it is. I then have room to put a logo in, and this is used for wireframes, because we find that users or stakeholders generally respond better to wireframes than they do to or mocks than they do to reading documents. So we try and get to wireframes really, really early here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up a logo here. So I've created a small logo here for Acme Letting. It's a letting agency, and I'm going to fill in system quality. I'm going to say we're trying to create an MVP, a minimum viable product here. I then go to the next section of this document, and it's asking about users. So what I then say is, it asks how do users access the system, and I'm going to say that users can log in as required, and people, it's a self-service sign up. So it's almost like a typical software as a service system. And I'm going to say that people can sign up using email and password, but you can obviously select other ways of signing up here. And then we ask, what user types does the system have? Always an area that sometimes people don't really capture very well. So I'm going to say that we have a user type of customer, and we have a user type of admin. So the customer's somebody looking for a house, looking for a viewing appointment. An admin is somebody who is administering the system for the letting agency here.
Yep.
And the next section is entities. So you see we have users, we have houses, and we have viewing appointments here. So the actual users, within Recruitment, we allow you to bind authentication, like users who log in, with entities. So actually these users here are really customers, and we want to store some data against those customers. You know, you don't just want an email address and password, for example. You want their name, address, and you probably ask them for that. So we will bind this entity using this question here. Does this entity represent the user type? Yes, it does, and it binds to customer. I'm actually going to change customers here to singular. And then if you look down here, we have the entity fields, the fields that make up an entity. So these are the fields that we think might make up a customer. When I say we use artificial intelligence, again, machine learning, to suggest fields for a particular entity. So we're saying these are the fields that we have in an entity. We can add or remove field. So I might not want somebody their birth date, so I can delete the birth date, for example, and I can obviously add other fields. I can add a row in here. I can put a field name, and I can select various field types here: images, videos, drop downs, etc. And add different things. So if I wanted to know the name of the person and, for example, whether they were married or single, I could add an extra field for that. We then have entity actions, and entity actions are, if you have an entity, what can you do with that entity? So these are standard within software development, like CRUD methods: create, read, update, delete. We also have an action for search. So we're basically saying we can create an entity, and if I click on this and go in, I can then say who can create an entity. Well, it's a self-service system, and I say a customer can kind of create themselves, and an admin, this is where you talk to stakeholders. And if I was talking to the letting agency who were commissioning this system, I would say to them, so customer can sign up themselves. Would you want the admin to be able to create a customer? And I probably bet that they say, yeah, somebody might walk in off the street. We'd want an admin to be able to create a customer. And then we have these things called auxiliary actions at the bottom, which is basically when you create, what else happens. So I'm going to say when a customer has created a welcome email is sent to the customer. So this this is basically an entity action, and we have lots of different entity actions that we can perform here. We have create, read, update, list, search, merge, import, export, various types of action, and we have other where you can actually define your own actions, your own custom actions here. So that's effectively an entity. An entity is just a bit of a part of a software system that's modeled in the software system, and as I say, it has fields and it has actions. So I haven't done very much. I've spent maybe a couple of minutes here, but I'll show you where we're at the minute. We can now at this stage generate wireframes. So I can now sit down in a meeting with a stakeholder, and I can now say, okay, we've started to talk about what the system needs to do. Let's talk about what the system, what screens we'll have for the system. So on here, I've just this is wireframes or mocks that we've created. So I can now log into the system. So I'll type in a password. This is just made up password. It's really just a slightly functional mock here, and I can log in. I can also go to sign up, and I could go and sign up here. But let's go back to log in, and I'm going to log in. And what it's showing me here is it's showing me some mocked up pages. It's showing me a couple of types of pages based on the actions that have been defined, but it's also showing me the fields that have been defined. And this is just kind of dummy data that yet again we've tried to guess from the AI. So it's never perfect, but it's better than just having the same thing repeated all the time. So I have a customer list here. So if I want to add a new customer, then I can go in and type in customer here, email address, etc. If I cancel that, I have houses within here. So yet again, I have various details of houses. I have viewing appointments. So I have viewing appointments in here. I can set the date of the viewing appointment, for example, and I can set, for example, the time of the viewing appointment here as well. So very quickly, within a couple of minutes, we've actually created some representation. This isn't what the system will end up looking like, but it starts to get you into conversations. And I'll show you, you know, if I was talking to a letting agent, the letting agent may say, actually, we'd quite like to have photos of the customer uploaded. Who knows why, but they might want that. So what I can do is I can go back to recommend, I could go to customer, I could add an extra field, I could put in, right now we want a photo. I could then go and put in the image for the photo here. I could put notes in some validation rules that it's mandatory, non-mandatory, etc. But let me just save that. And then if I go back to the wireframes, then I can refresh the wireframes here. And hopefully when we go into customer again, we do add new, we'll see that we now have a field photo. So it's a very quick way of actually just kind of playing with the requirements and getting them in some sort of shape. If I go back to the document here, then we ask other questions, which I won't go into in too much detail just for time. We ask entity relationships, so we can perhaps say that a customer can have 0 or more viewing appointments, you know, and perhaps we'd say things like a house could have 0 or more viewing appointments. All of those sort of rules based on entity relationships. We can also put in reports. So an area that we find that people forget to talk about in systems sometimes is everybody wants reporting in a system, or most people want reporting in a system. So for example, somebody may want a daily appointment report so that they can manage their the people that are going out to show people around houses. So we create a report here and we ask these questions again. You'll see why I talked about structured requirements, but we're saying which users can view the report? Well, the admin can view the report. How is the report generated? Various options. I'm going to say it's manually, which users can generate the report. Again, it's the admin, so the admin can view it. They can also generate it. What type of report is it? It's a list. It's going to be a list of viewing appointments, and the entities included in the report: the customer, house, viewing appointments. I'm going to say it's viewing appointments, and I can then say which format you want the report in. We want it in a web page, and we want to be able to download it as a PDF. And I could put in sorting capabilities and filtering capabilities below, but I won't do that. We then ask various questions on features here of the system, just various attributes of the system, like did it have maps, e-commerce, etc. And then we also ask various non-functional requirements, like, for example, we'll ask usability requirements here. So we ask for things like what accessibility guidelines will be followed, will the system have multilingual support, etc. Various questions. And we do the same for usability, security, performance, reliability requirements, supportability, legal system requirements, additional information. We have a glossary in there, and we have custom sections that you can add themselves. So the idea here is that you would very quickly create wireframes here. Obviously, the output we want eventually is going to be a documented set of requirements. So we can actually generate documents if I hit generate documents here. But I haven't filled out very much of this, so the document will be very, very sparse at the minute. I would really have to fill out more details. So if I go to my projects again, and I show you one that we've created earlier, then I'm going to show you this field service application. So this field service application has various more complex entities. The field service application is supposed to be for some people who are perhaps performing let's say a field service visit to install boilers, say gas boilers, and to service gas boilers. So we have various items in here of various entities that people may use here. So if I generate the document, I could generate wireframes, but I won't do that just now. I'll show you the document which is generated when I click on that. So we go off and we generate a Word document which has all this information inserted into it here. And it just okay. So I now have that document, and I'll open Word. And what we'll see in the document, we have a requirement specification for the field service application, and we have things like system overview, which obviously in this example I've typed a bit more detail, and we have the various users. The system has a lot more users than the other system, as you'll see there. We have login, security. It describes whether we've got what functionality we have for get password, two-factor authentication. We only had to, in the structured requirements, we only really had to basically click a box to get those in there. We describe all the entities. We have details of all the entities already defined. And in this document, this is about 39 pages of a requirements document, which has functional, non-functional requirements. It also has, I think I put a glossary in here as well. So if we scroll down, you'll see we have report, we have definition of reports here. We have definition of usability requirements that are filled out in this one, security requirements, performance requirements, etc. So that's really the documents. One last thing I want to show you. So I've shown you wireframes, I've shown documents there. I want to show you the fact that we can also try and basically do estimation using this and actually create Jira tickets or Microsoft DevOps tickets or indeed other tickets for other ticketing systems. So because the requirements are structured, then we can split down the tasks that are required perhaps for various parts of the requirement spec. So if I look at, we have this feature called task templates, and it allows you to define tickets. It allows you to say, for example, that is whenever we see an entity which has a create action, then I've got, forget about category here, it's something to tag something, tag a ticket with. But we say, develop the UI, API, and backend for creating a entity name. So that entity name can be a client, an invoice, a viewing appointment, etc. and we've got a description. So these are templates for creating basically tickets. And then what we do is within a project, when we have the requirements for a project, for example, this field service application, I can say generate tasks. And what it will do there is it will generate a CSV file of all the tasks that are required to create that system based on the templates you've created. So if I show you this here, we have within here, we have CSV file, and it's got various fields in it. And on each row, we have various details required for uploading a ticket to Jira. This one, for example. We've got a summary of the ticket, develop a UI, API, and backend for creating a client. And we've got a description here saying basically what that is based on the template. So following field should be saved when an API endpoint is called. It's got all the fields in there, and if it defines users, etc. in the system, it would have the users within them. So that is a very quick whistle-stop tour of what we do. We have users within here for recommend, so you can have multi-users within your own company. We have version history here within, so I can very quickly show you version history. We actually have version history, which should show you for each section of the document when things change. So we show before and after, and you'll see that this shows the time where it actually added the logo to the system description. So that's quite handy for showing change history. And that's really the demo of Recommend. So can we go to questions from?
Yeah, I think just to move on to any questions that have came through then, Andrew.
Yeah. Is this the final version of the product?
So we're currently developing the product. The wireframes you saw are basically version 1 of wireframes, but we're currently working on version 2, and those are a lot richer and a lot quicker to actually put almost like full systems together in wireframes. Some of the frames at the minute, the wireframes mocks are relatively rudimentary. We're making them richer.
Another question that just came in there is, how have you trained the AI, and does it cover on other industries like manufacturing?
So let's see if it does cover. I don't know. I'm still sharing my screen there. Is that
yeah,
correct? Let me go into. Let's see if I can go back into the product itself. So within a project, I could add other entities within here. So part I didn't show, I can say new entity, and perhaps I could say manufacturing. I might say let's say computer or something like that in here. Mention it. So the AI has been trained on language models. It's been trained on internet content. So if you look at computer here, then we have the brand, model, serial number, processor, RAM. So I would say what to do is try. If you're in manufacturing, then try a trial and try to create some of the entities that are in there.
Another question: with the exporting of tickets stroke requirements, is there any plans to export them into Gherkin stroke Cucumber for test driven development?
Testing is something we're looking at. When we talk about having structured requirements, I see requirements as the highest level of a tree. So the very lowest level, you've got machine code running within a system. Then maybe you talk about other abstractions like assembly code, like different languages, C, Python, etc. I see the requirement spec as a representation of the system at the very highest level. So we are looking at things like production of wireframes, production of code, production of test scripts as well. So yeah, and would love to talk to people about that. We're really trying to get some feedback on what people want within these type of systems. But testing, generating testing, is definitely on a roadmap.
Yeah, that's it for the questions. So that concludes the webinar. Thank you very much for attending. Be sure to visit www.gregman.com and sign up for a 30-day free trial. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.